This is all about using multi-platform content to connect with millennial parents. And this was a challenge that our client, Mrs. T's, served up to us about 1 year ago today. On the next slide, it outlines the brief we received, which seems so simple, but of course there's a lot to unpack. At the heart, Mrs. T's Pierogies is a frozen pierogi brand. Obviously, shoppers of all ages enjoy the product. If you haven't had a pierogi before, it's a delicious pasta stuffed with potatoes and oftentimes cheese. And so it really is a food that spans generations and brings comfort as well as a great thing to experiment with. And their core audience are millennial parents. So they came to us asking, how can we drive relevance and consideration for Mrs. Pierogies with today's millennial parents? And we dug really deep into research and insights first and foremost. And what we found, as parents today are deeply impacted and influenced by social media. They're using it as an escape, but also shunning a lot of the perfection that is being touted so widely on social. They're often encountering unrealistic images of parenting that contribute to pressures of comparison and very negative mindsets. We also know because of this that today's parents are gravitating more towards humor and comedic content, in addition to parenting hacks such as simplifying mealtime that drives considerable engagement. So with all of this research and insights, in our backpack, if you will, we developed a strategy to create community and inspire conversation. And on the next slide, you'll see our strategy outlined here is really to tap into the humorous side of parenting to create a community where millennial parents can share, vent, and support each other. There's this pressure coming from every direction for parents to be perfect, and this ever-growing trend towards sharing appreciation for sharing those ups and downs, whether that's in a Facebook community, an Instagram Slack chat, or maybe your own text chain. People are really celebrating, those not so perfect, but oh so funny moments of parenthood. And so we wanted to dig into this and develop an ownable storyline for Mrs. T's. But we knew content was going to be key to driving this community and inspiring conversation. So on the next slide, you'll see that the brand narrative we developed is that there's a lot of humor that can be had in spilling the tea, get it, tea, on parenting. So this level of relief that only can come with spilling the tea with your fellow parent, sharing story times of mealtime meltdowns, after school chaos, how you're handling sibling rivalries. The list goes on and on. So our Mrs. T's Spill the Tea campaign identified the most common and oftentimes hilarious fails and funnies that parents just couldn't wait to share, and also engage with other parents to spark conversation that built community. We were able to unveil surprising survey results and then offer a solution for this at-home chaos through our relatable advice as well as recipe inspiration. And at the heart of driving this conversation and building this community was a really rich and deep content strategy. It started first and foremost with influencer partnerships. We had a myriad of them to tap into, but we did partner with one mega influencer in particular, Lindsay Girk, who will show you some of her content in just a moment. But beyond that, we also created content that was ripe for editorial partnerships with Scary Mommy, a community that we know is burgeoning and sharing this kind of relatable and oftentimes hilarious family and parenting advice. We also developed content for owned social and digital. We commissioned a survey to uncover first-party data about, parents, modern parents today, and those fails and funnies that we would be able to use across channels as well as in earned media relations, and developed a set of paid media ads. So I want to dig in and show some of this content across multiple platforms now to give you a better sense of how it came to life. So starting with our influencer partner, Lindsay, if you go to the next slide, we can But Lindsay did a really great job of kind of capturing the hilarious side of mealtime with her kids. If you happen to follow her already, this is really at the heart of her content and how she can make mealtime both fun, but also find ways to embrace that chaos that oftentimes ensues. On the next slide, if you want to advance, we have some examples of content that we created in partnership with Scary Mommy. And of course, they have their own editorial team that we worked with really closely to share the first party data from our survey, as well as some other inspiration, which they were able to leverage into content that felt really organic to their channels that exist already. You know, really pointing out like how we can relate to each other and linking back to Mrs. T's socials and website. On the next slide, we have examples of meme content that we created. We know that millennial parents are really into sharing meme content across Instagram and Facebook in particular. This is where this kind of content does really well. So we were able to use our internal design team to create meme content that spoke to spill the tea. You know, I love this image on the left of the inside of a parent's brain and everything that is being kind of like fought for attention, and the engagement that we saw in these posts in terms of shares and likes and comments was really outstanding. We also, on the next slide, employed the man on the street style content to showcase real parents and what they were up against. So we were asking people to share, you know, what happens at dinner time, for instance, at their family, and how are they managing through that chaos, or, you know, what is the funniest parenting advice that they have received so far. And this man on the street style videos were leveraged across the brand's TikTok and Instagram channels. But of course, we want to dig in a little bit deeper with food. So if you advance to the next slide, we also worked with, I think you just keep clicking through to get to the recipe content. That's great. So we also worked with a number of creators that specialize in recipe development to help us create, you know, really easy and family-friendly recipes using Mrs. T's pierogies. So something that's really going to appeal to both parents and kids, and show them quick hits that can be leveraged across Instagram and Facebook. If you start hitting, you'll see that all of these are video. We know that video content on these platforms really performs best. And so we were able to leverage that to really drive engagement with the recipe content itself, driving back to mrstees.com. Speaking of which, on this slide, you'll see an example of how we were able to take the campaign and the various assets that we had to leverage for the brand's e-newsletter as well as website. So we directly delivered in the mailboxes of existing Mrs. T's fans all the kind of inspiration and information that they could need to connect with these communities we were building online, as well as mouth-watering content to help inspire their next trip to the grocery store.